The more things seem to change, the more they stay the same. The DA is once again frothing at the mouth over President Cyril Ramaphosa's decision to axe the party's Andrew Whitfield, who was serving as Deputy Minister in the Trade, Industry and Competition Department. Now we do have an official reason, but you have to wonder why the President was so quick to drop Whitfield, yet still chewing over things when it comes to Higher Education Minister Dr. Ngcobo. Yes, that chewing minister herself, who seems to be entangled in contradictions of her own making and directly accused of lying by the DA. The Blue Party has now given the President until Saturday afternoon to fire other ANC ministers or else, well, the President says he won't bow down to ultimatums and tantrums. Meanwhile, Floyd Shivambu has revealed the list of names of people who lead what's now being dubbed the Maibuye consultation process. And US President Donald Trump launched verbal missiles, dropping an F-bomb live on television. I'm Ziyanda Ngcobo, and this is your Week in Politics. In a strange and unexpected move, President Cyril Ramaphosa has fired the DA's Andrew Whitfield. Insiders say this follows Whitfield's participation in a party delegation to the United States in February aimed at clarifying misconceptions about South Africa's laws, including the Expropriation Act. The problem is that the now former deputy minister went on that trip without the required sign-off from his bosses.
The presidency can confirm that in terms of Section 93, subsection 1 of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa of 1996, President Cyril Ramaphosa has removed the Honorable Andrew Whitfield MP from the position of Deputy Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition. The President has thanked the former Deputy Minister for the time he served in the role. However, the President has not indicated any intention to conduct a wholesale cabinet reshuffle.
The DA, seemingly caught off guard, held an urgent federal executive meeting on Thursday afternoon. And their response, well, it was nothing short of enraged.
Whitfield subsequently wrote to the President to apologize if he had caused offense. Again, he received no response. Then yesterday, months after the incident, and without a further word on it, the President unilaterally removed a DA deputy minister without even giving his largest coalition partner an opportunity to discuss it. According to the President's spokesperson, this move is not part of a broader reshuffle. And there can therefore be no other conclusion to be drawn that this is a calculated assault on the second largest party in the governing coalition.
Whitfield admits he didn't get express permission to travel to the US, but says he's never been given a chance to explain himself directly to the President.
According to the ministerial handbook, you need to ask for permission before traveling abroad. Is that correct?
Which I did.
Okay. But you didn't get the permission to travel abroad.
Well, we didn't get a response, Aldrin, and, I think that it is reasonable to wait a certain amount of time, certain number of days. But yes, you're right, I didn't. I've acknowledged that this was a transgression. I've apologized. I've requested explanations from the presidency, but I've never received a single response to my apology, a request for explanation. And I think there were a number of things that could have been done over the last 4 months. It's been 4 months since that trip.
The second biggest party in the GNU is giving President Ramaphosa until Saturday afternoon to reverse his decision or start firing what they call non-performing ministers like Dr. Ngcobo, corruption-accused Thembi Simelane, and state capture-implicated David Mahlobo.
Mr. President, you have now dismissed a deputy minister for visiting another country. We now expect from you to swipe in front of your own door and dismiss members of your own party who are in cabinet that have been implicated in the VBS scandal, that have been implicated in the Zondo Commission, people that actually did things that are against the law or allegedly did those things. Visiting another country, and it's very important, it's not against the law. This broke rules of the executive, and he should have asked for permission, and he should have obtained that before we went. And he admitted that, and he asked for an apology. But you cannot compare that with the allegations against some of the other ministers from the ANC in this cabinet. So John Steenhuisen made it very clear this afternoon that the DA is giving the president 48 hours to fire those ministers who are implicated. Otherwise, the Democratic Alliance's federal executive will reconvene, and we will then obviously reconsider our position within the GNU and the way forward.
On Friday afternoon, Ramaphosa hit back, saying while it's not in his nature to give explanations for making changes to the executive, there have been several unfortunate statements and outright distortions by a number of people, including Steenhuisen. Ramaphosa says he was amazed at what he describes as Steenhuisen's intemperate reaction to the removal of Whitfield because the leader of the DA was told before the removal letter was delivered to the former deputy minister.
He had mentioned to Minister Steenhuisen that he will be awaiting a name for his approval from the DA, which then speaks to the commitment to have that portfolio or that role in the national executive still being allocated to the DA as part of the agreement that saw the formation of the government of national unity. It was therefore unpalatable and unnecessary for Mr. Steenhuisen to then give the president ultimatums as he did. And it was important for the president to clarify that and accept his constitutional prerogative.
Sticking with what seems to be the never-ending trips to the United States, an Afrikaner delegation was there again this week meeting with White House officials. But unlike Whitfield, the Freedom Front Plus, South African Agri-Initiative and National Employers Association don't serve at the pleasure of the president. Their decision to return there after Ramaphosa's Oval Office visit says everything you need to know about how they really feel about our government.
Today the delegation had a very important meeting at the White House with senior staff. It was a very frank meeting in which very important issues were discussed and a very important statement was issued.
The White House demands that farm attacks and farm murders be classified priority crimes. They also demand that the ANC publicly distances itself from kill the farmer, kill the boer.
The White House also demanded that expropriation of any property only takes place subject to fair compensation being paid and only once all legal processes has been exhausted. The White House also demanded that American companies be exempted from all black economic empowerment legislation.
Former Umkhonto weSizwe Party Secretary General Floyd Shivambu is working hard to keep his voice in the news cycle after announcing a nationwide dialogue to gauge whether South Africans want a new political party. During a media briefing on Friday afternoon, Shivambu unveiled the names of members of what is now known as the Mayibuye National Consultative Process.
We are still committed to the process of consulting all the people of South Africa in all the sub-regions, in all the regions, in all the provinces. The deputy conveners, we've got two deputy conveners of the Mayibuye consultation process. The deputy convener is Nolubabalo Mcinga from Sarah Bartman region in the Eastern Cape. Nolubabalo Mcinga is here. The other deputy convener is Robert Mwendo, who is also the president of the Mandahashu Workers Union of South Africa, which organizes EPWP workers and community workers. He's sitting with us as well here. And then we've got Bishop Vincent Jones from Mfuleni in Gauteng province. We've got Fana Mukwena from Fezile Dabi in the Free State province.
Meanwhile, former President Jacob Zuma is still fighting the termination of his 65-year membership in the ANC. He's launched a legal challenge against Ramaphosa and Luthuli House, vowing he won't be erased by what he calls sellouts and DA puppets. Ironically, he made this statement through his new political home, the Umkhonto weSizwe Party, an organization formed to oppose the ANC, yet now fully backing Zuma's bid to regain his membership. But Zuma's old comrades, they couldn't care less.
Today we are reminded that we have a former member of the ANC, who was expelled from the ANC, taking the ANC to court. The ANC, of course, will go and defend our stance. We will do that for the good of the organization. And most importantly, we really want to be spared this thing that in every platform where we are, this former member becomes a subject.
The race to the 2026 local government elections is heating up fast, with Joburg Mayor Dada Morero surviving a DA-sponsored motion of no confidence on Wednesday. Tensions are running high between the ANC and Action SA after Luthuli House backed an Al-Jamaa call to remove Nobuhle Mthembu. This was in retaliation for Action SA's refusal to defend Morero and Council Chief Whip Thembiso Zungu. Here's politics reporter Junior Kumalo with the details.
After 9 months in office, Action SA's Nobuhle Mthembu has been ousted as Joburg Council Speaker.
Those that are supporting that the Speaker must go are 212. And those who are against the motion are 48.
Mthembu's ousting came after Action SA's refusal to vote alongside the ANC and fend off motions of no confidence tabled against the Joburg Mayor and the Chief Whip. The DA tabled a motion of no confidence against Mayor Dada Morero and Council Chief Whip Thembiso Zungu. Al-Jamaa, on the other hand, sponsored a motion of no confidence against Mthembu. Together, the Action SA, the ANC, and the other parties of local unity had enough numbers to defeat the motions. However, Action SA refused to defend Morero, citing a failure by the mayor to turn around the ailing fortunes of the metro.
We met with the ANC on Monday night, and we have communicated to the ANC that we will not be voting to defend Dada Morero in today's council meeting. We have come to this conclusion because, frankly speaking, service delivery in Johannesburg has collapsed.
This decision by her party sealed Mthembu's fate, with the ANC supporting Al-Jamaa's motion against her. Despite this, Mthembu welcomed her party's decision.
Look, this is one of those points that the party is bigger than the individual. It's not about Nobuhle Mthembu here. It's about the party and what the party has promised the residents of the city of Johannesburg.
While Mthembu was shown the door, Morero and Zungu survived. With a vacancy having been formed, the acting city manager will call a special sitting to elect a new speaker. The ANC appears willing to again enlist the services of Mthembu's predecessor, Margaret Arnolds, from the African Independent Congress.
President Cyril Ramaphosa was in the National Council of Provinces on Wednesday, where he answered questions about the reworking of our BBBEE policies following his trip to the US and how to fix our ailing municipalities. Ramaphosa noted the outrage and concern over the 700 million rand price tag attached to the planned national dialogue.
And many people have become fixated on what it is going to cost. And a figure has been put out that it may cost X amount of money. And I would say that X amount of money that has been put out in the public, we are going to make sure that it is driven down. It is just an estimate.
On Thursday, Minister in the Presidency Khumbudzo Ntshabeni held a post-cabinet briefing where she was asked about the connection between Paul Mashatile's sister-in-law and Sizekaya Holdings, which was recently announced as the fourth bidder for the National Lottery's license. Kumo Bukhatsu, who's the twin sister of Mashatile's wife, co-owns Bellamont Gaming, which holds a stake in Sizekaya Holdings. Nchabene was pressed on whether the deputy president took cabinet into his confidence over these ties and the perceived conflict of interest.
It's not the duty of cabinet to discuss the declarations of individual members of cabinet, except when we declare an interest on an item that is being discussed in cabinet or in a cabinet committee, that we have, we either know somebody or we have knowledge or we've got an extended relationship with the matter that is being discussed. That's when those interests are.
When we return, a bit of comedic relief from earlier this week when Donald Trump couldn't hold himself back and dropped the F-bomb on journalists when asked about the Israel-Iran conflict. There is now a temporary ceasefire in place, but both sides are claiming victory. And closer to home, the drama over former Zambian President Edgar Lungu's burial and where it will take place landed in a South African court with no resolution in sight. More on that after the break. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. Thanks for staying tuned to Your Week in Politics here on Channel 405. This week kicked off with US President Donald Trump dropping the F-bomb in frustration over the collapse of the truce between Israel and Iran. Trump had triumphantly announced a ceasefire, but it barely held for a day. By Tuesday, both countries were back to launching missiles at each other.
You know what? We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what they're doing. Do you understand that?
A fragile ceasefire has held for a few days now, ending the nearly 12 days of conflict. At least 610 people, among them children, have been killed in Iran, with more than 3,000 wounded since the June 13 attack. Meanwhile, the US is moving to reopen its embassy in Jerusalem. Both sides are claiming victory, while Trump insists that his country's strike on Iran obliterated their nuclear sites.
They fought very, very hard and very viciously, very violently, and they were both satisfied to go home and get out. And can it start again? I guess someday it can. It could maybe start soon. You know, Iran has a huge advantage. They have great oil, and they can do things. I don't see them getting back involved in the nuclear business anymore. I think they've had it. They've been at it for 20 years, and I don't see that happening either. Now, if it does, we're always there. It won't be me. It'll be somebody else. They just had a war. The war was fought. They fought it bravely. I'm not giving up. They're in the oil business. I mean, I could stop it if I wanted. I could sell China the oil myself. I don't want to do that. They're going to need money to put that country back into shape. We want to see that happen.
Closer to home, the funeral of former Zambian President Edgar Lungu was halted by the Pretoria High Court. The Zambian government filed papers on Tuesday asking the court to interdict the burial of its former head of state. The court has now issued an order with terms agreed to by both sides. But as Zinigo Mhlaba reports, the battle over Lungu's remains is far from over.
The battle over the remains of the former Zambian President Edgar Lungu continues. The latest round needed a South African High Court intervention. Following the engagements between two sides, burial proceedings had to be paused.
By agreement between the parties, an order is made in the following terms. The first to seventh respondents undertake not to proceed with the funeral and or burial of the late president pending the finalization of the application. If any party wishes to intervene in this application, they are to file their notice of motion and founding affidavit and or any answering affidavit on or before the 18th of July 2025.
Acting Judge President appreciated the steps taken by both sides in an attempt to find a way forward on the matter.
This court appreciates the grief and pain of the family and relatives and the Zambian nation caused, or as a result of the retired President Lunga of Zambia, who passed on the 5th of June 2025. The deceased, especially as our culture as Africans, should be laid to his final resting place in a respectable manner. I also just want to thank the legal representatives for meaningfully having a discussion about this serious matter and reaching an agreement as to how the legal process would go forward should the parties not reach an agreement.
The Lungu family says honoring the wishes of the former president is their greatest interest.
And if it calls for us to bury in South Africa for the story to be told, so be it. But the story must be told. Edgar Chagwa Lungu must be exonerated in his death. Someone needs to speak for him. Those that never spoke for him in his lifetime, this is an opportunity to speak for him, even in his death. Let's not cower. Let's not fear the present regime. Let's not be afraid. Let's stand up for what Edgar Lungu should have stood for, what he stood for, and what he should have continued standing for. There's a public sentiment which is divided. There's a propaganda machinery that has been put in place by the government to paint him black even in his death, to continue persecuting him even in his death. But those who love him would rather he be given a dignified send-off. President Hakainde Hichilema is incapable of giving President Edgar Chagwa Lungu a dignified send-off. It would be a mockery. It would be a mockery. The insistence of him having to body view. As a matter of fact, interestingly enough, today a strange question came from the judge to say, suppose the president wanted to view the body. Would that be acceptable? And obviously the answer is no.
Should the two sides not find each other in the coming days, they'll have to file their respective papers in July in the same court. That process will lead up to the official court hearing, which is set for the 4th of August 2025.
Thursday marked 70 years since the adoption of the Freedom Charter. The ANC admits that 7 decades later, many of the rights enshrined in the landmark document are still far from being realized. According to the party, 8 of the Charter's 10 clauses have mostly been implemented, but those on land redistribution and wealth ownership remain a major challenge. Junior Khumalo attended the commemorative ceremony.
Ensuring equitable access to land for all citizens and that all South Africans share in the country's wealth remains a challenge. This, despite such rights being enshrined not only in the Freedom Charter adopted 70 years ago, but also in the Constitution almost 30 years ago. This was the admission made on Thursday by the ANC as the party gathered in Kliptown to commemorate the 70th anniversary of the adoption of the Freedom Charter.
On the next clause that says, the people shall share in the country's wealth, the most stubborn to address. Democratic South Africa inherited an apartheid and patriarchal economy. An economy in crisis with low GDP, high public debt, inequality, poverty and unemployment.
The ANC has as such vowed to continue introducing legislation and policy frameworks which ensure that all who still languish in indecency are economically emancipated.
As we therefore celebrate and reflect on 70 years of the Freedom Charter, we recommit to fight side by side until we have won our liberties. Not until the 30 years. Until we have won our liberties, the struggle continues.
The ANC faces an uphill struggle after suffering a political setback during last year's election and now has been forced to govern with other parties.
This is my lot for the week in politics, but of course, we'll be watching closely now that President Cyril Ramaphosa has told the DA that he won't be threatened. So he clearly won't budge, but has the DA overplayed its hand? Perhaps the second largest partner in the GNU has even bigger moves in store once the 48-hour deadline lapses on Saturday afternoon. But rest assured, we'll have all the coverage for you. Also next week, interviews for a new Deputy Chief Justice will get underway on Wednesday and Thursday. Newzroom Afrika Channel 405 will bring you all those developments. But for now, it's goodbye. Thank you for watching.